in me. A lot of fire left in me. Like a small boat on the ocean.
Hello, good evening. It is the 17th day of June 2025. You're welcome to today's edition of Geek Squad on Joy 99.7 FM. Today we have another riveting conversation for you. It has to do with cyber ethics, and it is something important that is not usually paid so much attention to. Today we are dedicating the show to that, and I'm doing it this today with Desmond Israel. He's a lawyer and tech expert. I'm also doing this with Emmanuel Gadasu. He's data protection officer with the Institute of ICT Professionals Ghana, and we are going to be delving into this topic together. And it basically stemmed from a conversation that was happening earlier this month, which had to do with a client suing a hospital because of some, surveillance that was going on, in the consulting room, which is considered, very normal in a lot of institutions. But the patient felt that it is quite inappropriate to have such, devices in a consulting room, amongst others, in a health facility. So it was quite a controversy, and that is what is prompting this conversation today. But before we go into that, we would like to delve into some tech trends.
Hello and welcome to Imagine Tech Trends on Joy Geek Squad. My name is Shalasechi. Coming up, Reddit will help advertisers turn positive posts into ads. WhatsApp rolls out ads in status updates. Google's Gemini AI will summarize PDFs for you when you open them. Apple's upgraded Siri now set for 2026 launch. Let's dive into details. Reddit is testing a new ad feature called Conversation Summary Ads On, which places positive user posts directly below ads. The feature combines AI summaries with real user comments to showcase what the community is saying about a brand. Jackbox Games and Lucid are amongst the first to try it out. Meta has officially begun showing ads on WhatsApp through its status feature. The app's version of stories. Users may now see sponsored content mixed with updates from friends and family under the Updates tab. Google is expanding Gemini AI features in Workspace to summarize PDFs and Google Forms in Drive. Users will now see summary cards with key insights and suggested actions such as drafting proposals or listing interview questions directly in the file view. The update, available in over 20 languages, began rolling out to Workspace users on June 12th. And to a final tech trend, Apple plans to release its revamped Siri in spring 2026 with iOS 26.4 per Bloomberg. Originally unveiled at WWDC 2024, the new Siri promises smarter, more context-aware features. And that's it for this week's Imagine Tech Trends. My name is Shalasechi. Catch you same time next week for more.
You're welcome back to Joy 99.7 FM. This is still Tech Trends. And as I indicated earlier, today's conversation is quite different from what we usually have. And I'm hoping that by the end of this show, we get some clarity on what cyber ethics are exactly and how we can better manage consent in this very digital age that we are living at the moment. So even before we get into the context of things that, what I mentioned about the hospital and that specific case, what exactly is digital consent and how different is it from the traditional forms? If you like to go, whoever wants to take it, that's fine. Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Well, so digital consent. Well, first of all, what is consent before we look at whether the digital and the non-digital aspect of it? Okay. So consent is when an individual agrees to something that he or she has been informed about. So it's a signal of an agreement to something. All right. So now, when we bring it to the digital realm, ordinarily, normal consent is either verbal. So I ask you, do you want to go with me? You say yes. That is what a consent. You have agreed to something. Or it could be by way of writing or by way of a gesture. All right. So that is the traditional one. But when we bring it to the digitized one, it is also the same thing, agreements. But now the mode of establishing that there is consent changes a little bit from the normal one that we have. So, for example, whilst installing an app, you are asked certain questions. Here, you don't have to say yes or no, or you have to write something, but it will be by means of clicking, making some form of selections, taking a checkbox to actually signal that you have actually consented or have agreed to what has been presented to you, either on an app, a mobile platform, a web application, a website, an app, or a social media platforms. So that is what digital consent is, to set the ball rolling. Yes.
So I mean, I see that the difference is just the same thing. It's just a digital version of what the traditional one is. Just that there are a few modalities that just shift in terms of the ways of going about it. Do you think, Prince, that it is something that has the level of awareness that it should have in this digital age? Because we know, like in Ghana, the everything has migrated onto the internet, and so the digital realm is something that, in one way or the other, whoever you are, you'd find yourself dabbling in there in different ways.
So I used to ask people, would you tell me how much is in your Momo wallet? Chances are you won't.
I won't.
Good. Good. So you are aware of privacy. You wouldn't want me to know what you have unless you've given me the permission to. Like my colleague said, what is important is the means, the medium through which this permission is given. So consent is essentially permission. And it has a constitutional root for us. And of course, those in Europe. Americans see privacy differently. They see it more from a consumer protection point of view. We see it from a human rights point of view. Okay. In our constitution, we say you have the privacy to your correspondence. It's a constitutional right. That constitutional right only gives way when you allow it or when the law allows it. We're saying this so people will understand that ordinarily that power is with you already. You have that right already. But you see, technology is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. I mean, this morning, chances are you would have clicked on one or two applications before you went to sleep. And you would have given consent even without consciously knowing that you're giving consent. Yeah. So that is what makes digital consent a conversation that you want to have. Because if I were to be coming to your house, I need to let you know I was coming. And if I don't and I showed up and you have things going, you'd be like, you invading my privacy. What are you here for? You should have called me at least, Right. So you see how real it is? Mm-hmm. Exactly. So if you want to then allow someone to get access to your phone, and I'm talking about apps that we install that have these permissions which we take for granted. There are apps that has permission to look at your videos, your cameras, even take information from your phone. I play with these things digitally. So the apps are telling you, I'm going to copy your contacts. But you want to use the app, so you accept it, And that's where digital consent comes from. So I'll just add to Emmanuel by saying that it's permission. And it's a matter of transparency that, okay, if you were going to be doing this conventionally, you would have sought my permission anyway. But if you didn't, then you wouldn't have gotten to do what you want to do. And that's what the law in privacy tries to protect. Tries to protect that individual's existing right already to their space, including their digital space.
So Desmond, I like where you're going with this conversation. So because it's making me even delay the hospital issue some more. Because a lot of the time when you are downloading these apps and you are installing them, they ask you certain questions.
Yes.
Most of the time, you'd find that users will just go through everything, like click everything, click, and agree to everything because you're in a hurry to use the app. Perhaps you downloaded it because you wanted to accomplish a certain specific task, and maybe time is not on your side, so you're in a hurry. And then you decide to choose everything. You granted access to your microphone, granted access to your camera, grant access to every single thing that you don't even think is as risky as it may be. Whose fault is it? Is it the user's fault for not being attentive enough, or it is the service provider's fault for asking consent to all of these things? Some of the things that it demands access to is you really wonder why you need access to my camera when the app doesn't even have anything to do with photography or anything. So who really do we blame in these instances?
So there are numerous ways or numerous types of consent. I've seen probably about 10 different types of consent, but let's talk about the three main ones, and I'm sure Emmanuel will come in. There is explicit consent, there is informed consent, and there is implied consent. Let's deal with these three first, because there are other consents. Explicit consent is when I tell you specifically that this is what I need this information for, and to allow me to use it, right? Because first of all, we are seeing your data as property. Okay, your name, your address, your location, who you are, your bank account, all these things, we consider them your digital assets. They are your property, right? And when we want access to them, we either ask you explicitly or we informed you and we take it. Now, digital consent does what we call informed consent. They are the opt-in, opt-out. I would want to discuss that later. Maybe Emmanuel would drop on that. But I want to make my point because of the question you asked. Yeah. Now, these digital platforms purport to give you that informed consent. Okay? So all the requirements of their policy and whatever is in some document in the app somewhere. It's just that nobody told you expressly that this is what is going to happen. Now, in law, we create a presumption, or else the law will not be applicable. So we create a presumption that anybody who proceeds to accept those things would have read them. So you are informed. The EU is shifting from that a bit, where it tries to say that bring the information closer to the user. Funny enough, apps that we use here behave differently in the European Union. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Certain permissions that run, the apps never operate the same way. They are geo-fenced. Never. Trust me. They never operate the same way. Like, if you're so vigilant, well, maybe because we do this work, but if you're so vigilant and you're interested, try how your Instagram works in Ghana, plus when you step out and you are within the European Union. Because the laws there, the standards are high in terms of enforcement.
That was just what I was about to ask, because why would it be different there than what it is here, if it's not about the assumption that the frameworks here are more laxed, and so there might not be as severe the sanction that it will face in a Western country.
You're paying 4% annual turnover, right?
Yeah, 4% of your global annual turnover of the preceding year.
That is
as a fine. And you're paying how much here?
Ghana, the highest is 5,000
penalty units. The penalty unit is about 12 cities,
which is 60,000 Ghana cities. So
I can reach, those of us who do risk management, that's a risk I can actually pay.
Yes.
So I'll take it.
Yeah.
If I'm some X application and I want to go ahead, I'd violate technically.
Yeah.
Except there are some prison term
10 years in prison
on some of them, and where a judge sees that the negligence or this is a criminal intent, the chances are you're going to go
in that situation. It will be very difficult for you to imprison the organization when it is the organization that is corporate in this matter.
Of course.
Even though you can hold the directors,
liable,
but that probability is far lower. So we might more be going to the financial penalties rather than, which is very, very small comparative to
get it.
What is
so there is an enforcement incentive in the EU, right, which gives these organizations more like a check. No, location cannot be a default turn on. Accessing contract cannot be automatic. Accessing contacts cannot be, camera cannot be automatic. Those sort of things. So you install the app, you see that it behaves differently. You need to now give it more access to do what it has to do, and that's where these informed consent come. As for implied consent, is I presume that once you're going to use the application, for instance, okay, you've agreed to it. Implied consent is the lowest of the consents. A lot of regimes do not support it. I mean, even the US regime, which is a little bit more relaxed than all the regimes, does not even accept implied consent. So technically, that's where the lines are drawn.
This is very interesting. I'm getting educated so much on this specific episode. Need I remind you that Geek Squad is brought to you by MTN everywhere you go. And also, if you want to contribute to this conversation, you can send your message via our WhatsApp number 055 1111997. The number once again 055 1111997. I think at this juncture we can go into the conversation proper regarding the actual situation. So there's this earlier this month or late last month, or this issue that had to do with someone suing a hospital here in Ghana because, according to her, she doesn't understand why there are surveillance cameras in the consulting room and other examination rooms. Ordinarily, in a very regular or other types of facilities, it would be normal for you to have, because of course for security reasons. But she feels like it is a breach of privacy that you have these devices installed in such a sensitive area of a hospital. I do not see where I'm struggling to see the difference here. Is it ethical to have a CCTV camera in a consulting room of a hospital? Isn't it, protecting both the doctor and the patient in this case?
You have a lot to hear.
Okay.
I can imagine.
Shoot first. All right. Okay. So anyone who intends to use CCTV for whatever reason should have a compelling reason. So the reason must be compelling, satisfactory, beyond all reasonable, doubt, to indicate that indeed we need CCTV for the purposes and intent for which we have established it. So in that case, or wherever we would want to use it, do we really need a CCTV to monitor that situation? Or are there other means to achieve same security rather than using CCTV that is what? Privacy invasive? And even when we have determined to use it, are we making the individuals who are likely to be recorded in this CCTV informed? There's a way you behave when you know there are cameras around, and there are ways you behave if there are no cameras around. So the individual, knowing very well there are CCTV or cameras around, the behavior, certain things they may have intended to do, may or are likely not to do it as a result of that eyes all over them. So there must be a compelling reason to use it. Then also look at it. If there are other alternatives, then why not go for those other alternatives to achieve that same aim rather than invading the privacy of people? Then also explicit, signage. The individual must explicitly be informed or made aware that here we are using a CCTV. And it will not be at the whims and caprices of what? The individual who just decide to use it. But it should be in a lawful manner. And there are set in most privacy laws how you go to measure these things to come to the realization that these things can be lawful and it has followed due process before you start implementing. Well, at the hospital, what goes on in the consulting room? So that's the key thing. What goes on there in the consulting room? What mischief are we trying to use the CCTV to cure? Okay, is the patient aware that somebody else is watching or could have access to the recording that has taken place between me and the doctor, knowing very well that the individual is not aware there's a CCTV? So to him or her, he's dealing with one person, only for that individual to realize that no, there were other people or third eye watching over me without me being aware. So which means I'm not in the know. Therefore, my privacy has been invaded. So that is where there would be an issue between the patient and the hospital.
Okay.
Can I advance that?
Yeah, you
That was a
can.
very, very good foundation. So here, look at it this way. You go to the hospital for medical examination, right? Okay. Now, under our laws, we have personal data. We have special personal data. Special personal data includes your medical records, your political opinion, your sexual orientation, and all that. It's in our law, right? And when it comes to privacy, is a high bar for special personal data. So now bring that into the hospital. She goes to the hospital. She's going to have a medical examination. Every single thing about that medical examination is a special personal data. Her breast size, whether there's lump in her breast, how often was her breast massaged, all that is part of her personal data, because that's medical examination. So the real question is she supposed to know that there's a third eye on her? Yes, because under the Public Health Act, that medical practitioner and the patient share confidentiality, similar to lawyer-client privilege. I cannot communicate outside what the client and I had discussed. And that's how this data is supposed to be treated. And when Emmanuel said that you set this thing up with express knowledge of its presence, because they are intrusive naturally. So now you have a high bar because of Section 96 of our law, which speaks about personal data and special personal data. And then you have another high bar because of the Public Health Act, which says that there has to be confidentiality between the patient and the medical practitioner. So when you decided that you're going to use CCTV for whatever reason, and like I said, my colleague has given a good foundation, so I'm not going there again.
Yeah. But
But when you decided to use it for whatever reason, you don't have any other kind of consent. It has to be explicit that in this medical examination room, a CCTV is used for XYZ reasons, and the patient will have the opportunity to opt in or opt out. Say, no, for my examination, I don't want CCTV over my head. And that would have been the patient's own choice. Because the truth of the matter is, I've heard that argument about legitimate interest. Yes. Legitimate interest is not flown out of the window. He actually addressed it without saying legitimate interest, right? Proportionality test, necessity test, and then the reasonability test. Is there other alternative you could have used that would allow the same mischief results? And so that's where I actually had another interview with a radio station where I actually argued that she has a case. From where I sit, she does have a case. I see all the privacy and confidentiality requirements being breached,
both from the data protection
and then the medical practice.
Yes.
Right. So yes, she needed to know that such a thing existed, because we can interpret CCTV in so many ways as we sit here. The collection of the information, how long is it going to be kept, retention, who is going to deal with it? Third party, is it an agent of the medical practice, or is a third party processor as we know it, like an external person who is maybe into CCTV implementation? So she needs to know. And then the risk of that data going out, that somebody gets to know, someone who is not supposed to know gets to know that she has this medical condition, or the privacy of her body being splashed out there, even though it was under medical examination. It's way, way a serious conversation than just a CCTV in an examination room. And okay, what could be the worst? The worst could be that privacy, one, is already breached because she didn't even know this was happening, which shouldn't be the case. And then what could happen, the aftermath of it, the retention, the disclosure, that could create all the necessary problems. And I'm sure we also dealing probably with a facility that do not necessarily even have data protection laws. Policy. Sorry.
It's very interesting. I didn't even see the conversation going this way because I was wondering how it was going to be a problem. But with these clarifications, I feel like
there's more
the applicant might be smiling to the bank. So it's more of just migrating what the doctor-patient confidentiality is onto a digital era, which makes it even worse for the facility as we know it.
Privacy covers both conventional and digital realms.
Right. So let's just situate this on outside the hospital or a medical facility, in regular work settings.
Okay.
Where there are CCTV cameras amongst others. Do employees have the right, or are they able to actually refuse to be part of any surveillance that's going on in their company or in their workplace for personal reasons or whichever reason that they have? Because I'm wondering how, speaking about this health facility conversation, I'm just wondering how that plays out in a regular workspace setting, because I've seen people enter buildings and the first thing they've done is look around if there are cameras. It's not like they are going to do anything bad.
I'm one of those people.
I mean, it's valid, because even in this age, things you haven't done, there are various large language models and artificial intelligence programs that can recreate you in a certain way that you wonder if you were actually, you will begin to believe that you were there when you weren't.
Yes.
So in this case, people are beginning to look around and be like, they do not want to be surveilled too much. Are individuals able, or employees able, to refuse that they do not want to be part of any surveillance that's going on in their workplaces?
Okay. Well, so we are now looking at the interest of the business and the interest of the individual. Now, when we bring the two together, which one is more compelling? All right. So the business would want to protect certain things. So there must be a reason, and that reason must be justifiable in law. Else, whatever the business will be doing to monitor will be an illegality. So, okay, what has happened and why are we implementing the CCTV? It's a key question that must be answered before they can proceed in doing so, in implementing a CCTV. All right. Aside that, if the employees feels they are being watched or their privacy is being evaded into, then it becomes questionable. So first of all, the right of the individual against the interests of the business, which one will be more compelling or which one will override the other? So it is not just about you having the CCTV there, but the reasons behind the implementation is one. Then secondly, even when it is implemented, the access controls, who have access to it, how long we are going to keep this information, are very key and are instrumental into determining whether it is still lawful or not. So you can have it, you can have all the reasons. The risk assessment is also one key. And before you even start implementing this, there's one key thing you have to do, which in data protection language we call the DPIA. That is the Data Protection Impact Assessment. So if you have not done all these things and you go ahead, it's likely you will be defaulting at law. And whatever you have done, because the risk, who is going to assess it, how long you are going to keep it, who can have access to the information, what you are going to use it for, all this plays in before you start to even implement it. And have you also explicitly informed the individuals or the employees? There have been so many instances across the world where the data protection authorities and the court have ruled against employers for putting or installing CCTVs within their own premises because it did not follow lawful process. Because some of the processes or things they should have done were not done, or certain areas where the CCTVs were, there could have been better alternatives. So if you are going to prevent against, for example, stealing or theft within the organization, you are dealing with books. Of course, nobody is going to steal a book. It's big enough. They can't put it. It's not a pin that you put in your pocket. And so if you have a physical security process there, it could have still achieved the results without you putting a CCTV there. So even though it may be appropriate in certain quarters, certain business operations, to use a CCTV, it may not be appropriate to use it at all places. And those two must be analyzed carefully. For example, in the bank, okay, some instances, so it is a requirement of law or in a particular industry. So, for example, the banks, it is for their ATMs, it's a statutory requirement for them to implement it, because there have been instances where customers and the tellers will be fighting. The money was up to, the money was not up to. We want to see who came in to pick the money. So those ones are sanctioned by law, so it's statutory. So those ones you cannot. But ordinarily, you are a food seller or someplace and people are coming in to, would you still require that? What are you trying to cure? So what has happened before, what you are trying to prevent, are all key elements that would determine whether your intention or your usage of a CCTV is lawful or not, and as to whether you have actually also explicitly informed the individuals who might or are likely to be recorded in these CCTV issues. So it is not as easy as people just go about doing it, and worst of all, you are not even informed at all. So before any organization can start using it lawfully, not to affect the privacy of the individual, there are so many things that needs to be done before. And I'm sure my senior will add more to it. Yes.
The deeper we go into this conversation, the more I realize certain things, and I'm like, so we have been playing with a lot of things in this in this space, because all in the name of technology.
Yes.
Because it is trendy, people are doing it, and it seems to be working, and so we feel like we can also copy what is happening. Like tying into what Emmanuel explained. So how do we maintain that balance? Because he has explained multiple things: the issue of the data privacy, and also the breach, of confidentiality and all of that, and how it should be gone about. How do you think the balance can be established between security and data protection in your view?
Okay, let me be a teacher for once.
Please do.
So, first of all, you have substantive requirements and you have procedural requirements. Substantive requirement in the sense that, like Emmanuel said, what does the law say you can do, right? So, you can process data if you have consent. You can process data if there is a contract between you and the data subject, in this case, employee. You can also process data if a law says you can do so, as in the statutory obligation. And then you can process data if you have a legitimate interest. I addressed legitimate interest in the previous question. So like you have four main grounds under law that you can actually process data. Where you draw the line is where the procedural requirements come in. Because you can have, say for instance, under the employee contract, you say that you'll be monitoring the environment for maybe quality assurance in terms of service, right? And then you use the data in disciplinary hearing. We saw you on CCTV insulting the manager. That's the evidence. Oh yes, people have challenged these things. I mean, some of the cases he's talking about. Mm-hmm. What was the purpose under contract for the CCTV? And it's always funny until you get to the courtroom and you realize that these nuances actually play out. Where the arbiter of justice is willing to hear what the purpose for those cameras were. And then you begin to say, well, we put it there so for safety and legitimate interests of the employer. But then it was in contract. So you see, you are now importing things into that contract. Again, procedurally, when you implemented a CCTV, what were the control mechanisms? It's for security, but it's also in the washroom of the ladies. Okay. What happened in the ladies' washroom that requires a CCTV to be there? Because you can argue the legitimate interest case here.
Exactly.
I mean, we need it.
You could have used other legitimate ways to achieve
the same results. Maybe people go in there to molest the ladies. Can we have a security guard there without invading on their privacy when they actually, that place is called private, right?
Exactly.
So can we have security at the private? to make sure people don't enter into that private space, you know. So that's it. That's where you draw the line. It's always about how you are achieving the data collection. You see, and CCTV is data collection.
Yeah.
It's just that it's audio visual and it's motion, you know. It's data collection. So we need to know that, okay, yes, a law says we should take it. I'll take Emmanuel's example of the bank. They do this, one, for security and also to check fraud and theft. Okay, all under security probably. So you're weighing that security interest to the privacy of people entering the bank, because a customer could argue that I came here to cash money and you have cameras all over my head. What's up?
My own money.
My own money.
Like, bro, my own money. What's up with these cameras? But the bank will argue statutory obligation that if a theft happens now and is not able to give CCTV evidence to the Bank of Ghana, they will be flouting license obligations. So they have a legitimate interest in protecting the license to operate as a bank, which is a very heavy cost on them. They pay millions for that. As against you cashing that money and don't want camera over your head. So substantively, they have a case. But what happens when the CCTV footage of me holding my $1,000 I took from the bank finds itself on social media, and I've told my wife that I don't have any money?
Trouble for you.
Trouble.
And but and then video online showing that you were counting money in the bank. Do you see the practicality of it?
Yeah.
That bank has questions to answer. Because the collection was not problematic. The disclosure is problematic. That's why I said you look at it substantively, where what does the law says, and then you look at it procedurally, as in what my colleague, that's the job he did. He actually explained the procedure and how this thing is supposed to be done, you know. So the DPI essentially is very simple. It's like doing risk assessment. What are the data flow? Who collects the data? Where does it stored? How is it deleted? How is it shared? How is it disclosed? Right? It's a data flow. In the DPIA, we go through all that flow and tick the red flags. That at the data collection, for instance, we don't have consent. That's a red flag. It means we can't collect the data. What's the alternative? Oh, but Bank of Ghana said we should collect the data. Oh, we have a statutory obligation to do so. Then we'll tick off the non-consent with what? Statutory obligation. It goes through the entire channel. I don't want to repeat what Emmanuel has said because he did it succinctly.
This is getting even more overwhelming as we go along, because again, and at the risk of sounding like a broken record, we've taken a lot of things for granted in this
that's
space.
true.
And it takes conversations like this, which is why Geek Squad is deciding to bring this conversation to the general public, so that we appreciate all of these nuances for both the clients and both managers of different facilities, no matter where it is. But there's more coming up. We'll just take a quick break. This is still the Geek Squad on Joy 99.7 FM. We will be back with more.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Ghana Institute of Clinical Genetics, aka Sickle Cell Clinic, Kolibu, is turning 50, and we are celebrating with a series of exciting events. Theme: Translating Research into Care. 50 years of sickle cell excellence at GICG. Join us on June 14th as we take to the streets for our anniversary float, spreading awareness, joy, and community spirit. On June 19th, we mark World Sickle Cell Day with a life-saving blood donation drive. Come be a hero and make a difference. There's more: a free health screening, an enlightening public lecture, and a grand fundraising dinner to support the future of sickle cell disease in Ghana. Be part of the legacy, be part of the future. The Ghana Institute of Clinical Genetics 50th anniversary is sponsored by National Blood Bank, Accra City Hotel, Promasidok Ghana, Bank of Ghana, media partners, the Multimedia Group. For sponsorship and enquiries, call 0554 311 540 or 0209 626 867. GICG, 50 years of impact, and we are just getting started.
proud boys of St. Augustine's College, Cape Coast, associates and friends from Ghana and all over the world, may I have your undivided attention. The ever-vibrant 2001 year group of St. Augustine's College, Cape Coast invites you to the special fundraising dinner in aid of the ultra-modern canteen project. The ABSU 2001 year group wants all to be a part of this experience of giving back to an institution that has shaped the journeys of some of the finest gentlemen making impact in different places around the world. There will be fine dining, amazing music from the Characters Band, and catching up with good friends from way back as we support this project in a big way. This much-awaited fundraiser will be chaired by ABSU Dr. James Atulinse, President of Grader, Chancellor of the Cape Coast Technical University, and CEO of JL Properties. The special ABSU 2001 fundraising dinner at the Aviation Social Center comes off on Friday, June 20, 2025 at 6 p.m. sharp. To obtain tickets, just visit www.absu2001.org or call 059 6920 697. ABSU Action in Kote. ABSU Omnia Winkit Labor. This announcement is by courtesy of the Multimedia Group, celebrating 30 years of joyfulness.
In every community, the skyline is dotted with uncompleted buildings, some at the foundational level, others at lintel or roofing level. Each one tells a story, a dream, a home in the making.
Because home ownership remains one of humanity's greatest desires.
Wherever you are on this journey, whether you're breaking ground, building up, or simply furnishing your space, the EcoBank Joy News Habitat Fair is designed with you in mind. Join us from Friday, June the 20th to Sunday, June the 22nd at the Achimota Retail Center for the first clinic of the EcoBank Joy News Habitat Fair 2025. Let's help turn your home ownership dream into a lived reality.
The EcoBank Joy News Habitat Fair is powered by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, and brought to you by Virtual Security Africa, security for all. Superlock Technologies Limited, you deserve the best. DBS Industries Limited, we truly are your roof experts. The Builders Market, bathroom, get it right. Lesh Fortune Limited, unleashing luxury with perfection, one space at a time. Clifton Homes, beautiful homes, wise investments. Interplast, we make sure water reaches you, even space. Elegant Homes and General Construction Limited, where quality meets value. Ayuda, Ghana's #1 service app Bako Service Bebre. Drive EVGH, drive into a sustainable future. Syntex Tank, a year strong, a year tough. EcoBank Joy News Habitat Fair 2025. Dream it, own it, live it.
Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song.
You're welcome back to Geek Squad on Joy 99.7 FM. I'm Kenneth, Awotwe, Darko, and we have been having a very interesting conversation today, and I have been overwhelmed by the amount of information that have been shared by my very honorable guests today. I'd like to reintroduce them once again. I have Emmanuel Gadasu, he's a data protection officer with IIPGH, and Desmond Israel, he's a lawyer and tech expert. Now we are moving slightly away from the hospital conversation and all of that. But when it comes to data privacy, there's also this very important part when it comes to like the digital area, photography. A lot of the time you attend events and you'd have your photos taken. Sometimes you might not even know that your photos have been taken. You just be there, someone send you a picture of yourself. Oh, you're looking nice. Oh, you're looking good. But maybe that day you didn't want to be in any photographs or all of that. But you usually feel like there's not much you can do because the photo is already out there. I guess my question is, if you are somewhere or whatever it is, if you even pay for a photo shoot, who legally owns a photo? Because there are privacy issues here, because your image has exchanged hands, is now in the hands of the photographer. You feel like you are the one that has been, your image is what is there. What exactly is in there for both parties? Who legally owns that photo?
Let me tell you what happened in 1977.
Tell us.
There's a case called University of Cape Coast versus Anthony, 1977. The current constitution came out when? 1992. In 1977, the court held that they had permission to take her picture at the event, but they did not have permission to put it on a postcard. We are clear on that?
Yeah.
So they took a picture of this lady at an event, and then the university created postcards out of those pictures. The court's position was very clear that her privacy has been breached. What she consented to was the taking of the photo and not being used for the production of a postcard. Essentially, what we are saying here is ordinarily your image is yours, and you can agree for it to be taken, which essentially is when you have an event, like you said, happening and the photographies are taken. Of course, you are the event, and naturally, if you don't want your picture taken, you would say don't take it. And if it's taken on your blind side, then technically it's I would not even presume implied consent, right? Just by the fact that you are the event. At all material times, you have the right to determine whether you want your image reproduced in a photographic manner. And when that happens, who owns it? Unless there's a contract that has allowed you to waive your right to the person that, well, after they've taken these pictures at these events, they are the only ones who can use it. We all know why we are laughing. then you might not really lay claim to know. But that's a conversation about, intellectual property. I think I should allow Emmanuel to touch
you can weigh in on this.
No, okay. Well, so let's look at it from this. You go to the stadium to watch a match between Asante Kotoko and Accra House of Folk. And the following Monday, your picture is on Daily Graphic front page. What are you going to do about that? Are you going to sue the graphics for... Okay, so like my senior said from the beginning, that there's something about implied consent. Ordinarily, certain places and the kind of person you are, if you are a PEP, politically exposed person, a celebrity, and those kind of things, the right to those images will be limited.
Agreed.
Compared to a private person like myself. All right?
Yeah.
And also, where the picture was taken also counts. So, like the stadium, national events, there's an implied consent that, of course, you go in there, you could be in the Joy News tomorrow morning, and you can't complain about that. Yeah. But where in your private home, private event, then we may have an issue of privacy. And let me give a clear-cut example. My church, actually, there was one time a lady complained that her picture has been posted on our Facebook page. All right, so quickly, the issue came to my attention. I look at it, I said, no, where this picture was taken was not ordinary in the cloud. It's a place that definitely you would have asked the person to be there before you take the picture. So I asked, I said, yes, she agreed for her picture to be taken. But that particular picture they posted was not nice, so she doesn't want it to be online. So immediately, I asked it to be pulled down, and then a message was sent to her to confirm that indeed it has been deleted. All right. Now, when we bring it to context in our modern day life, so many places out of the blues and pictures, and before you are live, without even your notice, it is required. And these there are things some few organizations that so that we have a photography-free area where the individuals, yes, if you don't want your photograph to be taken, then this area, so the cameramen, the videographers are trained. This area, you don't take pictures on those areas. Okay. So especially in our churches and others, it's not everybody that wants to be seen public. Yes, the fact that I'm in the church does not mean I should be streamed live. Or my pictures should be taken. Now, as to the ownership, I think that's falls strictly under copyright, intellectual property. The little reading I did said for photographers or those in the field, the moment you hear that sound, they own the copyright. But for privacy, we are looking at, well, do you have the person's consent? For example, you go for events and, people start taking you pictures. And after that, they would print it and you are forced to pay for it. If you don't pay, what is the photographer going to do with that? Your wedding pictures, if you take it, who owns the copyright? Is it you or the photographer? So intellectual property and copyright will attribute that to the photographer. That they have the copyright to it. But it becomes their intellectual property. But to you, the individual. So I think to settle all these things right from the onset of their contracts, you inviting somebody to come and take your pictures, you have to indicate clearly who would own the copyright or the intellectual property of that. Because I'm hiring you to do some piece of work for me. So I come with the terms, you agree, we are in business. Else, automatically, if you leave it at it for them, I'm sure the photographer would have that copyright and over you, the individual, even though it is your image. And I'm sure this arose as a result of Jennifer Lopez's picture.
Exactly.
I think this brought about all these issues. And her own picture, posting it on her own Instagram page. And now
the photographer says,
yes.
The photographer says, you don't own it. You have to pull it down. Yes. I'm the one that owns the picture.
Yes. Because she's a celebrity.
Case. Yes.
Right, and I think my senior can add more.
I mean, basically, those are the default rule is that the photographer will own it. But then there are exceptions, which is if I had a photographer, like Emmanuel said, then it will change the dynamics. Also, unemployment-based photography, pictures taken by Joy FM, for instance, would be for Joy FM. So from the intellectual property point, and of course a lot of nuances will also come into play. It's just more to do with the specifics of the facts. Yes. But I think for the general public, intellectual property laws would by default ascribe the copyright in a photography to the photographer, save for the exceptions that might come out of it. Yeah.
Right. So how aware do we think people are when it comes to all of these things that we have discussed regarding the privacy of their data in the digital space, when it comes to CCTV footages, when it comes to photos and their usage? How aware is the public on the regulations around all of these modalities, Emmanuel?
Okay. So if you want to put a measure to it, then we can say it is increasing. Maybe not at the rate we would have expected, but definitely there has been progress. And the Data Protection Commission of Ghana is doing its bits to educate the public and the general public about the right of the individuals, and also to organizations, which we technically call them the data controllers, about their obligation. But unfortunately, most of these institutions are not aware of the position of the law and what they ought to do, what they have to do, or what they are legally mandated to do. So most of these things are just like, hey, a normal way of doing business. I decide to do what I have to do. But hey, people are becoming more aware. Of course, just within, I think last month, 2 issues have been prominent. The hospital case we are talking about, at least a lot of media platforms have spoken about it. Then the one also where somebody has sued for Vodafone, Telecel, for 2 million Ghana cedis using her picture without her consent. Of course, this will resonate, and a lot more people are becoming aware of their rights in terms of privacy, and therefore would want to take it up. And where their rights have been violated, they will seek remedies for this at the appropriate courtesies.
Right.
So to me, I think it is increasing, and we have to give it more push.
We'll be advocating for more of that.
Yes.
But we will be coming back to wrap up the conversation very soon. But here are some quick tech fixes.
Hello everyone, my name is Michelle Lejokum, and as usual, I bring you some tech quick fixes and tips right here on Joy Geek Squad. Running out of data before the end of the month? Well, here's how to take control. 1. Go to Google Settings, then to Network and Internet, then to Data Saver. 2. Turn on Data Saver mode. 3. Restrict background data for heavy apps like YouTube or Instagram. And that's it. Enjoy more browsing without the surprise bill.
Welcome back to Geek Squad on Joy 99.7 FM. I mean, like they say, I mean, time flies by when you are having a very great time, and unfortunately, that's what's happening here today. But we'll not let our guests go without giving us, a summary of what any final words that they have before they leave us. Now, Desmond, you've said a lot, which has resonated with me. What exactly will be your final words before you leave?
Privacy is crucial. Awareness should always focus on government level, corporate, and individuals. We can't just focus on one side of awareness creation. If we really want an impact, corporate, government, and individuals, and we should look at it that way.
Right, Emmanuel, what are your final words?
Okay, so in a world where data is power, he who holds more has the power. Our privacy, our dignity, our consent must always be respected, and the opportunity must be given to everyone to exercise that right in the digital space.
Those are some powerful words there, but that's how we draw the curtain on today's edition of Geek Squad on Joy 99.7 FM. Up next is the news at 8. Have a good evening.